Can we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ooh, I'm trying to get all set here. Okay, thank you. So we're going to start with a presentation on special education. Dr. Lanz.
Thank you, Madam President. Towards the end of last year, the board asked for a presentation on special education, specifically related to discipline options that we have for special education students. So I asked Ms. Muir to contact the attorney that we use for special education. Ms. Muir, would you like to introduce our speaker?
Thank you, Dr. Lanz. I'd like to introduce Ms. Vicki Coe, attorney with Clark Hill and Associates, who does a lot of work for us and advises us on special education and 504 issues. Welcome.
Why, thank you. I'm happy to be here to talk about an issue that's near and dear to my heart, and one that is something that many districts are struggling with regards to balancing keeping schools safe and what seems to be an escalation in behaviors, and how do we grapple with making sure that we are protecting the rights of students with disabilities while doing everything else that we're supposed to do with regards to all students within our school environment. And so for our purposes today, special education discipline is a presentation that could go all day. Obviously, we don't have all day. We have a short period of time. So we will kind of do more of a broad overview of things, but I think we'll get to the gist of where we need to be. I don't know if this is kind of a Q&A thing, but I prefer Q&A because I don't like to talk at people for long periods of time, but I'm a lawyer and I can do it all day, every day. So it is okay. I guess our general counsel says I must say this. This is not here to give you specific legal advice, but I always feel like people get legal advice, but I'm not here to do that. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I always say value my law license with me, okay? The law is very much black and white in many respects, but it's gray, and most of your questions live in the gray zone. And I know that we don't have sufficient time, so no one can really challenge me, but there's sometimes the answer to the question has to be, it depends. It's not because I don't know the answer, it's because it requires more facts. The more gray we get, the more we have to get into where, what has the U.S. Department of Ed said, how have courts interpreted it. And this is why I always say people that have Google Law degrees, their degree is not worth the paper that it's not written on. But just say that. So let's just talk about general student discipline and legal context. Obviously, we have various different statutes that we look at, that we refer to with regards to discipline. Our biggest one, at least from a state law standpoint, is the revised school code, and those are the very specific sections that we look at. Obviously, Section 1311 talks about those mandatory expulsions, but as we know, in 2017, when the legislature did away with zero tolerance with respect to all revised school code infractions except for possession of a firearm, right? We know that we don't have zero tolerance. So there is no mandatory specifically if we're looking at those 7 factors in the way that we're supposed to. There may be times where a kid possesses a weapon, but we're not going to expel them because if we're following what we're supposed to do by law, we shouldn't be doing it. Corporal punishment statutes, dangerous weapon. Obviously, there's a definition of that within the revised school code, but when we get into some of the federal aspect of things, we have definition of dangerous weapon under the IDEA. That differs from your definition of a dangerous weapon under revised school code and probably even under your codes of conduct. Because a lot of times under codes of conduct, we have look-alike weapons. Those are not weapons as defined under the revised school code, and it definitely would not meet the definition of a weapon under the IDEA. And when we're talking about specific provisions that we can do to potentially remove kids, whether the conduct is a manifestation of disability or not, we have to make sure we're looking at the right definitions. Obviously, the Gun-Free Schools Act and our constitutional safeguards with regards to due process. Yes?
Ms. Coe, could you please remind us of the hierarchy of laws or regulations and what usurps another one? Because although I know what IDEA is, I'm
Yes.
not sure that everyone in our community knows what that is.
Yeah, so IDEA, we're acronym happy in special ed land. So that's the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. and Section 504, Section 504, the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. When we talk about the hierarchy of laws, federal law is always going to trump state law, period. There's some nuances with that, but that is generally the gist of it. So when we're talking about providing protections and when we're talking about disciplining students, especially students with disabilities, we always have to take into account what the feds have said we're supposed to do by way of disciplining students with disabilities. We have to take into account the protections that they're afforded under the IDEA, under Section 504. There's some state laws that are not referenced here. So the Michigan Persons with Disabilities Civil Rights Act, which kind of mirrors in some ways Section 504 to some degree, and some Elliott Larson, that mirrors Title IX, right? So we have all of these other underlying laws that are not necessarily specific to discipline, but there can be some intersection depending on what the potential claims are. But federal law, then comes state law, then comes your codes of conduct and things of that nature. And then to the extent that guidance is not law. Guidance helps inform how we interpret the law, but it's not necessarily legally binding, except when you get to the agency that has developed that guidance and they will tell you that it's legally binding. Yes?
Is there a document that might help to service us of federal law superseding state law?
No, that is a legal principle. It's in eons and eons of cases out there when you talk about federal usurping or preempting. Federal preemption is what it's called with regards to state law. But it's well settled in our jurisprudence. Yes?
It doesn't vary by age, correct?
It does not.
Thank you.
No, as long as it's applicable, which it would be, especially in the K-12 standpoint, it's gonna trump. All right. All right, in terms of what due process protections we have for all students, regardless of disability status, obviously we're supposed to let everybody know what our rules are. We're supposed to give notice. We typically do that through our student codes of conduct, right, that we give out yearly. We should be revising those to some degree. Sometimes I find there's a disconnect sometimes between what's in our policies and what's in our code of conduct. I don't think that's with your district, and I hope not, but we're supposed to give notice of rules. When we are seeking to do a disciplinary infraction, they are given an opportunity to be heard. That's something that we get actually from case law. Gosby-Lopez is the case that comes from, right? And what that means is going to vary depending on the length of the recommended out-of-school discipline for the child. And at its essence, it's basically giving the child a right to give their side of the story, all right? We're supposed to make sure we're having fair, uniform disciplinary consequences for everybody, right, regardless of disability status. That's something that everybody's afforded to. I mentioned that Gosby-Lopez case, and that's where we basically get what our gen ed, as we call it, disciplinary protections are. And the U.S. Supreme Court in that case said that if we're going to remove a kid for more than 10 days out of school, we can't do that unless we're giving them a right to an evidentiary hearing, okay? And that's why you all have in your codes of conduct that a principal or whoever cannot suspend a kid for more than 10 days. If they're going to look at something that's more than that, it's a recommendation, and that recommendation goes to the next level. If they are a student with a disability and we're recommending a removal that constitutes what we call a change in placement under the IDEA, and we'll talk about what that means a little bit later in the presentation, they get additional rights. And those additional rights, depending on the outcome of those, will prevent them from going to an evidentiary hearing because that's what Congress says they're entitled to. And that's what happened when I believe that Congress added the manifestation or termination review process to the IDEA with the 1997 revisions to the IDEA. And that's kind of the impetus for that. And maybe I'll not preempt what I was going. Let's stay with the slides. Okay, I'm not very good at that. And so when I come to these presentations, I have to be less than who I am in terms of like my gregariousness. Anyway, all right, so what are the consequences to the district if we fail to comply with our obligations for general due process protections afforded to all kids regardless of disability status? Well, we may have a court that tells us we have to bring the kid back. Or if you've talked to your lawyer and they tell you you got a gen ed discipline problem, we're telling you you probably shouldn't move forward in that process because you are exposing the district to potential 1988 claims, right? 1983 claims. And when I say those claims, those are claims where people come after you for your money. They come after you not only as an entity for liability, but they also go after individuals, right? And obviously we know as a school district or governmental entity, we have governmental immunity, but it can be pierced under certain circumstances. And so we don't want to expose ourselves to these big, what I call cha-ching-ching money damages type situations. And so it's very, very, very important that we are complying with not just the general protections that are afforded to all students, but also kids with disabilities can come after us as well. Section 504, the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, also has a monetary damage component that's there as well, and those would be above and beyond what might be available under 1983 or 1988 claims. And so it is very, very, very important that we are mining our crossing our T's and dotting our I's with regards to things. Our building responsibilities, obviously we need to notify students of the rules. Generally don't have a problem with that. We do have issues sometimes with not making sure that we are providing that information to people who English is a second language. We need to assist. I do know that there has been some recent federal movement with regards to removing certain things with regards to English language learners, but Title VI still exists and Title VII still exists and all these other laws still exist. And so we need to make sure that we are doing things to make sure we are getting that information to people that have English as a second language or have hearing impairments, need interpreters, things of that nature. We're getting that information to them in a way in which they understand. Because without notice, without appropriate notice, we cannot move forward appropriately without violating a law, okay? Please, please, please pay attention to mandatory expulsion rules. Even though we know that we did away with mandatory expulsion for everything in 2017, there are still districts that still try to move towards that. And we are not appropriately doing what we're supposed to do under state law as well as federal law with regards to that. Okay, and then we have to make sure we're giving that due process before we suspend or recommend expulsions, unless basically we can't kick the kid out and say you can't come out, can't come back without giving them that general process that they're entitled to. We don't do that too much except for those situations where we feel like the kid might be a danger, and if we will allow them back in school immediately, that's going to be a problem. But I have seen situations where, not here, let me just say that, I ain't seen it here, but I have seen it elsewhere where we get very lax on those rules in terms of making sure that we're following the appropriate process. Okay. As I mentioned before, that students with disabilities get additional protections, right? And those protections stem from the IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. Yes?
On the previous slide, we had a question.
Oh, cool.
Sorry, I was like this, and he was like, "You need to be more assertive."
Oh,
So
I got tunnel vision, sorry.
So my question is there case law or definitions on unduly disruptive?
It's like the unicorn. You know it when you see it. No one there. So there are many tenets within the law where we have these words or phrases, and courts are reluctant. Agencies are reluctant to give us a definition because it removes your ability to be able to judge a situation based on the specific facts. So no, there's not. What will happen is someone's going to Monday morning quarterback you based on whether or not it actually happened. And so in those situations, what I typically like to tell people to do is don't worry about what it's defined. Let's look at what's happening, and let's make sure we show our work. If we feel like it's unduly disruptive, why is it unduly disruptive? Why was this necessary? Why did we need to take that action? And we document it appropriately, and then we let the chips fall where they may afterwards.
So, Ms. Coe, correct me if I'm wrong, though, this is specifically related to due process.
That is correct.
Not the amount of suspension.
this is just
Yeah, so
due
it's
process.
very clear. And in
Yes.
our district, it's very rare for a student to be out more than 24 hours before we completed the building level due process.
Mhm.
And so this rarely would apply to us because we have different abilities now than we had before. I don't believe there's any requirement that has to be done in person, so we can do it virtually if we need to, or
The-
over the phone in conjunction with the parent working with us.
That is correct. We just have to make sure that we have a process in place to get the information that we need. Yes?
So does this apply to both gen ed and those with ADA? Okay,
Yes.
all right.
And when we talk about mandatory expulsion, basically, it's null and void at certain points, isn't it?
Yes, yes, it really is. It really is. Well, let me modify this. So, when the legislature amended the revised school code to get rid of mandatory or zero tolerance, they were talking about those infractions that were specifically identified within the revised school code. There are infractions that you all have as part of your code of conduct, and what we lawyers say, is that a code of conduct violation or is that a revised school code violation? Most districts, to simplify things, because why are we gonna, is this one where we have to consider the 7 factors? Is this another, they just adopted it across the board. That way we were consistent. We didn't have someone that didn't understand when they should apply it and when they shouldn't apply it. And because many districts were consistent and said, we're gonna do that no matter what, yes, there are no more mandatory expulsions.
As a practice, all of our administrators consider all of the factors. You may remember at the end of June, we revised our student code of conduct so that we're very clear that we do that every time. Although that had been our practice, we just made it very clear that that is what we do.
Okay, 2 questions. First question for Dr. Lance. Do we have a process in place when there are questions about due process that we're not sure about? Do we have clarity on when we go to the lawyers to discuss it, or is it just kind of when you deem it appropriate?
So we're pretty fortunate that due process is pretty cut and dry. It's very rare that we have a question about due process, because due process, at its most basic terms, as you'd mentioned, is making sure that we hear the other side of the situation. That's a basic level of general due process that we need to provide. Fortunately, between Mr. Scaling and myself, who usually are working with the principals, I think we have 185 years of experience. I have about 150 of those. He's much younger than I am. So we have seen a lot and we have experienced a lot, but we have no problem, and I talked with Cabinet about this, that the best professional development we get is speaking with our attorneys. And so whenever there's a question, we're going to err on the side of calling our attorney to make sure that we're following the right process. Because in the end, I would hate for Ms. Coe or any of the attorneys that we use to go, wow, you really screwed that up. I don't want any part of this, right?
Yeah.
And so we'll never put ourselves in that situation.
Got it. Got it. Thank you. And then just a quick question for Ms. Coe. In your experience, what's the most classic example of a government body like this being pierced to the individual level? What would be a classic example of that?
There are no classic examples.
Yeah.
I think it very rarely makes its way up to the board level. It's generally in the administrative level, right? And that may be scenarios where we just had an egregious failure to comply with the procedure, with the due process. Ways I think that we don't do things sometimes appropriately is where we think we have sufficient information to prove a code of conduct violation, and then we don't do extra things. And we expel a kid. when I say extra things, we never asked the kid their side of the story. We didn't really conduct any additional investigations. It was kind of, we caught you red-handed. Well, that's not enough. That's not enough from a due process standpoint. And if we, depending on what happens to the kid following that, that can be a scenario. There's all kinds of things that can happen, like when drugs and all that stuff are involved, caught red-handed, remember? Kids get hurt, other people get hurt. That is a problem.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. And then I've mentioned in terms of our extra protections for our students with disabilities. And lastly, we get those protections from the Michigan Administrative Rules for Special Education. And those kind of emanate from Michigan mandatory special education law, right? And then they mirror very much what we have in the IDEA in terms of our MARS rules. Okay, so in terms of framing where we're at and what the U.S. Department of Education position is with regards to disciplining students with disabilities, I feel it's important to kind of give you some information from the Office of Civil Rights. So they collect data from all school districts around the country. They're always very much behind with reporting this data. You see, this report was issued in January of this year. However, it is referring to the 2020-2021 school year. Okay, and based on the data that they collected during that reporting period, nationally, students with disabilities make up 17% of students served by public school districts. Our IDEA eligible students represented 14% of K-12 student enrollment, but accounted for 28% of students who have been mechanically restrained, 76% of students who have been physically restrained, and 68% of students who have been secluded. You know, in Michigan, we have a restraint and seclusion statute. We also have a reporting requirement. I will tell you, based on my experience, that we don't do a good job of accurately reporting what is happening in school districts with regards to restraint and seclusion. And I guarantee you those numbers or that issue is not germane to Michigan, and those numbers are probably much higher if we think about it. I also want to put this into context. This is during the COVID period where schools were shut down. And so that puts this data into a greater context for you, right? Out of 1.4 million students enrolled in preschools, 2,700 public preschool children received one or more out-of-school suspensions, and approximately 370 preschool children were expelled. These are our babies, under 5. Okay? IDEA eligible preschool children with disabilities represented 23% of preschool enrollment, but 41% of preschool children who received one or more out-of-school suspensions, and 74% of preschool children who were expelled. Students with disabilities represented 17% of K-12 enrollment, but 27% of students who received one or more in-school suspensions, 29% of those who received one or more out-of-school suspensions, and 24% of those who received expulsions. These numbers only seem to increase as the years progress. And again, I want to highlight this is during the COVID period, all right? And I think you need to keep these numbers in mind because it's against this backdrop that we must view the legal requirements of the IDEA, Section 504, and the Michigan laws, as well as the guidance that has come out from the U.S. Department of Education in terms Office of Special Education Programs, which is the branch that is charged with enforcing and interpreting the IDEA, and the Office of Civil Rights, which is the branch that's charged with enforcing and interpreting Section 504 and the ADA in the K-12 standpoint, right? So in MDE, they do their stuff too, but they don't have any, let me keep that to myself. They do the same thing that the feds do. Yes.
So being that this is during 2020-21, and we know that students with disabilities don't always react well to routine. I mean, it's hard enough for, you know, general population, if we're out of routine, to, you know, change course. Do you think that these numbers have increased significantly because of that, or would it be like, and it's kind of leveled back out possibly?
I don't think it's leveled back out.
No.
I do believe that lack of structure in what happened during that time period was problematic, and we're still living through that, right? Because a lot of times, many of those students did not receive the intensity of the interventions that they could have received if they were in school all day, right? But I think that we have what we call a little bit of a perfect storm here. Not perfect in terms of good perfect, but you know, we have staff shortages. We have, which creates a lot of problems there. We have staff that don't have the level of training that they should have in terms of having the tools to support kids. We have what we consider to be this siloed mentality, which is that's special ed, this is gen ed. And if I'm a gen ed teacher, I don't do special ed. That's where they got to go to the place. They got to go to the place over there to get those services or those supports, and that's not my responsibility. We have lost, for reasons that I'm not aware of, we have lost our belief that it takes a village to educate a kid, and that kid is all of our kid. And we are all supposed to roll up our sleeves, and we're all supposed to do what we need to do. And if I lack the skills, I'm gonna get the skills. We have it. My name is in it, Bennett ain't in it type mentality. And I think the staffing shortages, COVID, all manner of things, it's created this recipe that has caused problems for us as districts. Okay. Don't shoot the messenger. All right, so the feds and the Michigan Department of Education obviously have responded to these growing discipline numbers, right? Or they call it exclusionary discipline. And they discipline not just the students with disabilities has been a huge focus, right? We're talking about significant disproportionality, all of those things. They want to know what's happening, right? But in recent years, the U.S. Department of Education and the Michigan Department of Education has laser focused in on what has been happening with our students with disabilities, because they are seeing an uptick in them being excluded, especially ones with certain disability labels, right? And if we think about why the IDEA, why Section 504 were created, they were created because, especially the IDEA, we had students with certain disability labels, whether they were medically fragile, whether they had significant emotional issues or other types of things. They were excluded from school just by nature of their disability. They were, if they were in school, some of them were put into substandard environments and things of that nature, and Congress said it has to stop. And it has to stop, and they created the IDEA in Section 504 as a mechanism to prevent that from happening. Well, what we're seeing, or at least what the data seems to suggest, is that that pendulum is shifting back, and we're not necessarily giving the protections that we're supposed to give because we're not thinking about it in the way that we should be thinking about it. We're looking at the behavior, but not trying to figure out why the kid is engaging in the behavior and putting in place the services and supports that the student needs to help them be able to be in an environment, right? Because if it is disability-related behavior, on some level, that's something that they can't control. And that's the reason why Congress put in the manifestation or termination review process in 1997, because they didn't want kids with disabilities who were engaging in behavior that was a manifestation of their disability to be excluded from school. They wanted them to get the services and supports that they were supposed to get so that they could overcome that issue and be part of the school environment where everybody's safe, okay? This 2016 letter from OSERS, which is the Office for Special Education Rehabilitation Services, is what that stands for, is, I say, in the context of discipline, that is the Bible for Michigan Department of Education. It is the Bible. If you read that letter, in many ways it will It will shock you, it will anger you, but then when you take a step back and think about what they're trying to say, then you will say, okay, I get it, even though I don't necessarily agree with everything that's in there. And what this letter, give you the Cliff Notes version, is basically saying, where you have a kid with a disability that is engaging in a pattern of behavior that we are concerned about, and we say, well, we're doing everything that we can do. The question is, are you really? Are you really? There are many times where I will go and, in defending school districts, and I will ask to see the data, and sometimes the data doesn't really tell what the people are telling me exists. That's a problem, okay? There are times where you find that staff really don't have the training that they should have. That's a problem. There will be people that will say, yes, I'm doing that with fidelity, and then you ask them, what does fidelity mean to you? Well, I tried it one time, and the kid's behavior got worse. That's not fidelity if you stop. And what this letter says, and what people who know more about behavior than I do will say, and for those of you that are parents of kids who did the sneaky stuff, you know. When you have a kid, or an adult for that matter, that has engaged in a pattern of behavior that has gotten them exactly what they want, and then you start putting in place measures that takes away the power that they have earned through that bad behavior, logic will tell you that what they're going to do is they're going to start to up the ante because they don't want the parameters that you have put in place. They don't want that structure. They're going to see, is there a way to get around it? If there's a way to get around it, then they're never going to learn to do something different because all they've learned is the workaround. What this 2016 letter says, we have to stop giving them the keys to the workaround. We need to look at, are we not doing something correct? Do we not have the appropriate supports and services in place? Do we not have the appropriately trained staff? And if we are the problem, then we need to fix it. Stop saying, kid, you fit into our square box. Don't do that, because that's not what the kid can do. We need to conform, put in place the appropriate services and supports, and then we're going to start to see change. But we also have to recognize it's not something that's going to happen overnight. The kid didn't learn that maladaptive behavior overnight. They didn't learn that's the way that they're going to get overnight, so we cannot expect that they're going to change their behavior overnight. We need to make sure that people understand that, so that they are putting in place those interventions and doing them with fidelity. And you know what? When the kid tries to up the ante, we say, you know what? We got you. Not today, kid. Not today. Right? I try not to do all these stories, but, working with the district at one time, we had a kid that would come in and say, what do I need to do to get suspended? What do I need to do? The kid has already told you. Many kids don't tell you that that's their goal, but this kid told you that that was their goal. If you give them their goal, what are you teaching them? Nothing. So these other two letters that came out in 2022 from the Office for Special Education Programs, again, IDEA, dealing with disciplinary protections, it kind of piggybacks on the information that we got in the 2016 letters, but it goes a little bit deeper as well. And it starts talking about the fact that even though discipline is a tool in our toolbox, we have to remember what that tool is for. If we're going to suspend, that is meant to change behavior. If it's not changing the behavior, then the intervention is not working, and you need to look at something else. So that's kind of the gist. It talks about all kinds of disciplinary protections and gives questions and answers, but that's the gist of what they're doing with those letters. Yes.
I'm wondering, you may not have this in your database of your brain, but is there any data that you're aware of around the outcomes for students who are suspended or expelled in relation to their future prospects or relationship with the criminal justice system in any way?
Well, look, everyone is familiar with the school to prison pipeline, and that's where that data exists. I mean, most of the kids who have been excluded from school a lot of time are illiterate, can't do basic things, and right, wrong, or indifferent. Some people, once you've been labeled a troublemaker and that's all that people see that you can do, that's what they're going to do. So that data exists.
Yeah.
I don't have.
So there's consequences beyond just the suspension for the community as a whole
Absolutely.
when
Absolutely.
they're not allowed in school.
For sure. Yes.
With special ed students and talking about discipline and suspension or removal and so forth, how do we weigh whose rights supersede whose rights? So you have a student that's acting out in the classroom, a special ed student, and that student's, does that behaviors get more protections than the rest of the students in the class that are daily having to deal with those behaviors?
The short answer to that question is the special ed kid student has more rights, because if that conduct is disability related, we have obligations that we have to comply with. And as part of those obligations, we have to ensure that we're educating kids in the least restrictive environment, where we're providing them a free, appropriate public education. And there are things that we can do to move a kid that violates those components. And so if we move a kid solely based on the behavior that they're engaging in and say, hey, you got to go over there with the special ed kids. And I always have a problem with that, because the perception is that the special ed kids can be exposed to that, but not the neurotypically developing kids, right? And so what Congress would say, what the Michigan Department of Education would say is they have more rights, and those rights are for you to ensure that you're doing what you're supposed to do by putting in place appropriate supports, services before you talk about removing that kid from that setting, because they're entitled to be in that gen ed environment just as much as the other kid that's not misbehaving. All right. I won't go so much into 504. 504, obviously there are disciplinary protections under Section 504 for those kids that are eligible there. They largely mirror the protections that we have under the IDEA, because, you know, OCR stole them from the IDEA because they're not specifically articulated within the Section 504 regulations. There are some nuances. I don't know if I'll go over them today, but there are some nuances in terms of what the Office of Civil Rights says that we should be doing by way of disciplinary protections for our 504 eligible kids. The IDEA discipline requirements that MDE put out in 2022, they basically took, or they stole, or they plagiarized, whatever you want to call it, what was in the guidance from the feds from 2022. The shortened school day guidance that they revised, I think, is really important, because especially shortened school day seems to be in virtual schools, sending kids to virtual environments or distance learning or whatever, seems to be a pattern. When we have kids that are behaviorally dysregulated, that's where we want to put them. And this shortened school day guidance very much cautions against that, because, you know, the law jealously guards a full school day. Whether you have a disability or not, whether you are behaviorally dysregulated or not, you have a legal right to a full school day, just like your neurotypically well-behaved kid has. And if we're going to put a kid on a shortened school day, according to the MDE guidance, we need to make sure that we're doing it because it's necessary for that kid's disability. Not necessary to give relief to the staff who feel, you know, battered or worn, or the parents who are complaining about this kid or that kid. That's not the reason why we would put a kid on a shortened school day. It has to be necessary for their disability. It needs to be something that's short-term in nature, and we have to develop a plan to bring the kid back to school for a full school day. I always say that plan is where school districts fall down, because they want to put in place plans that says the kid's going to be perfect before they can come back to school. There's not a perfect human being in this world. Everybody on every given day does something that violates some law. 1 mile over the speed limit. You might not get pulled over, but it does violate the law, right? Exactly. And there's not a single person in here that says that they haven't done that. So there's no one that is doing everything perfectly every day. And if the kid, if you're really putting the kid on a shortened school day for the appropriate reasons, because it's necessary for their disability, now you're punishing them for something that they can't control by telling them they have to be perfect, and it's a standard they'll never be able to ascribe to. So we have to be very careful about what that plan looks like. And then there's guidance from MDE with regards to responding to and counting disciplinary removals. I think the thing that you want to take away from that is that MDE suggests that when we're counting days of removal, which is really important for us in terms of special ed discipline, is that you're counting them accurately. And MDE suggests that you do them by attendance. How you do attendance. I don't like that rule because we had a difficulty counting to 10 when we were saying a partial day equals a full day. And in the 15 plus years that I've been practicing special education law, I've never seen an attendance record that's been correct. I don't like absolutes, but I ain't seen one. And if that's the way that you're using it, and you know that you have attendance, your practices are not on the up and up. You got to make sure you get them correct if that's the way you're going to use counting days of removal for kids. All right. Make sure there's no questions. Okay. I already talked about doing away with the zero tolerance laws. I think the most important thing is, based on what Dr. Lon says is our practice here in the district, we have to make sure that when we're doing those disciplinary removals or we're considering discipline, right? Because under the revised school code, it says a removal for more than 10 days is presumed inappropriate. Shouldn't do it unless consider these and it's something that you need to do, right? This is why when we're doing this, especially for districts that have done this, it's very hard for me to figure out why a 5-year-old is expelled from a school district. It's very hard when you think about the pupil's age, disciplinary history. I'm thinking if they're 5 years old and they're getting ready to be expelled, they better darn well have been evaluated for a disability because that's atypical. It's atypical. Come on, right? There has to be, even under Section 504, the lower standard of physical or mental impairment that substantially limits a major life activity, right? So we just have to think about those things, right? And thinking about whether there's a lesser intervention that would properly address the behavior. Yeah, I'm going to stay off my soapbox. Did you have a question?
You know, when we talk about violation, the violation of threat and the safety of any pupil or staff member, how is that defined? How is that interpreted?
You know what? There hasn't been any case law that I'm aware of specifically because this is state law, right? And most times when people are making claims with regards to discipline, they go off to federal court. They don't care about this. They care about the harm that's been caused to the students, so they're not getting into the nitty-gritty of there. But I mean, threaten, if we use what our ordinary terms are, right? In safety, if someone's not safe, if they're in danger of being hit or beat up every day, that threatens the safety of that pupil or staff member. That is a component. But you see, it's only one of the factors. And this is, you know, a lot of times they say, but sometimes it doesn't always come out to play, that, you know, grammar matters. And we're looking at all. It's not an or proposition. It needs to be, we consider all of those things. And I don't want to say every time, because are there times when kids are legitimately expelled? Absolutely. For sure. Long-term suspended, for sure. I don't know what it is. It's one of those things where you know it when you see it, you got to show your work. But my thing is, I think the more you focus in on that one factor as the reason why, to the exclusion of the other ones, the more you put your district in danger.
Mr. Siegler, as a practice, when there's a threat made at school, we go through our threat assessment protocols. And that is not to usurp any of the 7, is to give more information about that particular bullet point and the level of threat that we've determined after going through our process through CSTAG.
Because as we know, a child could be verbalizing something but not doing anything.
Correct. And there's also, and we talk about this with our principals, there's a difference between a 6-year-old saying something and a 16-year-old saying something. And so that's part of how we're trained is to look at not only the words that were used, the circumstance, what led up to that circumstance, the witnesses that heard it. So we do take the student's age as part of the training in account when we're looking at a threat.
Yeah. Disability status would come into account there as well. Sometimes you have kids, especially ones with those pragmatic language deficits and things of that nature that they just say things that could be construed as threatening, but they're not. Like it's a latent threat, right? It's not going to go anywhere.
And that's also one of the reasons why oftentimes our social workers are part of, or our school psychologists are part of the team that evaluates the threat the student has made, or the perceived threat the student has made. You had a question?
Yeah, the first 4 bullets are more demographic, yes, no, or a fact, right?
Yeah.
The seriousness of the violation starts to be gray. The 5th bullet is past tense, so was someone threatened? But then the last 2 bullets seem to be written in future tense. Is
Yeah.
that intentional, and can you explain why?
You asked me to explain what a legislature does. No. I can give you a theory. I think the last 2 bullets, in terms of looking prospective, it is really trying to get you to think about, is discipline something that needs to be done? Do we have to do it? Is there an alternative that we can look at that is going to address the violation that's there? Little Johnny hit Susie. Susie's upset, Susie's afraid. Can we do a restorative practice circle with them to help them understand, to help Johnny understand what he did and how Susie feels, and does that help Susie feel more calm? Can we do some other things? Do we have to say, Johnny, you're out of here because you engaged in that physically violent behavior, right? So, or can we do a lunch detention, or can we do in-school suspension or something that prevents the exclusion of them from out of school? Is the goal and intent behind what I believe the legislature was trying to do with the zero tolerance. The disciplinary history piece of it, I do think, however, requires you to look more qualitatively. And so if the kid if they have a history of saying violent things, do they have a history in their discipline of actually making good on those violent threats, or is this a situation where they just say it? I tell my kids when they were younger, I would stab them if they did something wrong. I would never stab them, and they know it. But they know that. But it sounds like I threatened them. I kind of did. But, but they also know I would never do it. And they're 28 and 26, and I have not stabbed them yet, okay? So just know that. They're officer. So that's my best guess as to why they did.
Very helpful, thank you.
And Mrs. Kraft-Janis, related to restorative practices, one of the tenets of it is that if you and I have had a disagreement and we want to use restorative practices, we both have to be a party agreeing to it. So you couldn't put that in. There's no other tense because we don't know if you're going to agree to it or not.
Yeah. All right. So eligible students with disabilities are entitled to procedural safeguards, which include that manifestation or termination review meeting if the school district seeks to remove the student from the educational environment, and that removal will constitute a change in placement. Notice I use removal and not suspend. A lot of times people get hung up on the word suspension or expulsion. There are different ways you guys code things, right? And so what Congress said, we don't care what you call it. If it walks like a duck, sound like a duck, it's a duck, right? And so we care about, are you removing that kid from the educational environment for disciplinary reasons? If you are doing that, you need to count that. And once you get up to enough removals, then you need to hold a manifestation or termination review meeting. Now, the purpose of that MDR meeting is to determine whether the conduct for which a student is subject to discipline is a manifestation of their disability or not. And with limited exceptions, if the conduct is determined to be a manifestation of the kid's disability, the school district is prohibited from further disciplining that student for that disciplinary infraction. So, take, for example, a kid brings a weapon onto school grounds that is not a firearm. Well, even if it's a firearm, you still have to hold an MDR. But let's just say it's a firearm. Let's leave the other thing out of the way. And for whatever reason, the manifestation determination review team determines that that kid's possession of the firearm on school, the weapon, not firearm, the weapon on school grounds was a manifestation of the kid's disability, they never come see you. They can't. Congress said they can't come to the board. It doesn't matter that they possess the weapon on school grounds because by federal law, they are entitled to return back to the placement for which we removed them from, period. And so if you expelled the kid anyway, despite what the MDR team decided, that's going to subject you to the 1983 claims, 1988 claims. That's going to get the board implicated because they're going to say you should have known better and all of those things, right? And so it's a big deal when we find that conduct is a manifestation of the kid's disability, all right? If the conduct is determined not to be a manifestation of the kid's disability, then you can discipline them in accordance with your disciplinary processes and procedures. However, you have to make sure you're not discriminating against the kid. There will be many times, because there is a perception, it's an incorrect perception, but there is a perception that we got to get out of discipline-free card if you have a disability. That's not true. But sometimes we decide we're going to throw the book at the kid because we finally got him. We finally got him. That one time they did something and it's not a manifestation, and we're looking to punish them more harshly. If we do that, that is discrimination potentially on the basis of disability and potentially violates Section 504 and the ADA. Yes?
And I'm sorry, how quickly does that determination made?
It must be held within 10 school days of the date of the decision that constitutes a change in removal. So, or what should be happening if we're doing this as a well-oiled machine, because we know if we are looking for a long-term suspension or expulsion, we have to go to that hearing process. And if we're following Goss v. Lopez, that also has to occur within 10 school days, right? So we are making sure, hopefully, we hold the MDR process before we ever get to the board level or however you do it in your district, because in my experience, boards don't like to be overturned.
So if a child with a disability brings a weapon to school, we as a system have to wait up to 10 days for the determination of whether that is a manifestation of their disability.
You don't have to wait. You have only 10 days to make that decision, and you have only 10 days to get them to the board hearing if the conduct is determined not to be a manifestation. So there's a lot that's happening within that 10-day period.
Got it.
Meeting the MDR, making that determination, trying to get board hearings scheduled and things of that nature.
So just as a point of reference for our community, the policies that we have, the hearings take place at the deputy superintendent level. The board does not hear expulsions.
Okay.
And the deputy superintendent's decision is final. There's no appeal of that decision.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, so a child brings a weapon to school. It's a manifestation of their disability. How do we protect the rest of our students? Like, what kind of things can we put in place if they are allowed to stay within the school?
Okay.
Protect our rest of our students.
So, okay, that's a great question. So under the IDEA, not under Section 504, but under the IDEA, if you have a student with a disability that possesses a weapon, a dangerous weapon, it has to be defined as a dangerous weapon as is defined under the IDEA, then a school district can unilaterally, mean they don't have to get parent input or parent agreement, they can unilaterally remove that student for up to 45 school days to a different setting. And while they're in that different setting, you still have to provide FAPE to them. And you're looking at what are we going to do to help shore up things so when they come back, and I notice I said when they come back, we can help to ensure that we're protecting the safety of everybody as well as that kid. But, you know, if you have very limited options if the conduct is determined to be a manifestation of the kid's disability. And it's, in terms of that unilateral removal for up to 45 school days, it is limited to weapons, drugs, serious bodily injury. That's it. If a kid engages in some other conduct that doesn't meet those definitions, and we still have a concern about safety, either their safety or the safety of others, we still have avenues available to us. One would be what we call a HONIC injunction. That's something that you can go off to court and say, hey, we think this kid's a danger to self or others. We need you to issue an order that temporarily has the kid out of school for up to 45 days. You also have a pathway through the Michigan Department of Education, specifically within the IDEA. We call that an expedited due process hearing. That same thing, you're asking an administrative law judge to remove the student for up to 45 school days. Now, again, it's only 45 school days. They will come back unless the parent and the district agree otherwise. If there's a determination at some other point that the placement, it no longer provides the kid a free, appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment, you can look at changing placements and doing some things there. But it takes some work. It takes effort. And sometimes where we might think the kid shouldn't be here, we still may have to keep them here because there are all kinds of circumstances in place that we have to shore up in order to make sure that we've done what we need to do to support that kid in an appropriate way.
I think two things to follow up on that is the last two options mentioned, going to court and going through administrative law judge. Our standard to prove our case is incredibly high, and it's relatively, if not extremely rare, that a court will step in and go beyond what our team has decided. Would that be a fair?
It is. I mean, there are times when courts have found it. I'm not going to say they don't, right? But there are many, many, many cases, more cases than not, where the court says, yeah, we see the kids engaging in behaviors. Those behaviors are not good. Yes, they're putting people at risk to some degree. However, the reason that the kid's doing that is because you haven't put in place the supports, you haven't put in place the services. And that's a really horrible place to be, right? Because at that point, you're under court order. You can't remove the kid. And you are we're not stuck, because that's just not a right way to say it, but you are prevented from being able to do anything other than get your house in order. And that's essentially it, because when you go to a court to say the kids are a danger to self or others, you bear the burden of proof. Parent can walk in there and they ain't got to do nothing. You have to tell the judge that you've done everything right. So you're going to bust out your data, and your data should support what you're saying. And if your data doesn't support what you're saying, what I say, you're bankrupt, right? So if you're bankrupt and you don't have appropriately trained staff, you are going to have spent roughly $10,000 only to be told you got to bring the kid back, and that's $10,000 that you could have spent over here shoring up staff, training, getting the supports and the resources in place for the student. And so you have to balance. Where is your money better spent? It's not about whether this kid's safety is worth this money. It's about, we got to balance the rights of everybody, but we have to do what's right. And if we're not doing what's right by this kid, then we need to do what's right, because someone's going to tell us we have to do it. And where do we want to devote our resources? In doing what's right now, or doing it after the fact where it's going to cost you double to do what you should have done in the first place? So it's rare. I don't really when clients call and ask, should we go there? It's very rare that I would say, yeah, I think you got it. It's rare.
And in the situation you described, two things would be happening somewhat simultaneously. The IEP team would be getting together to revise the plan and of supplemental aids and supports. And in conjunction with that, not exclusive to that, we would also be working on a safety plan specific towards the concerns we have for that particular student.
Would are you allowed to legally go through their backpack and their things to make sure that they don't have any weapons on them when they come back, and so that way we know that it's safe for them to come back to school for the whole community?
That is an option that we can utilize within a safety plan, yes.
Yeah.
And just so my colleagues understand, for years, everything that we're talking about used to come before the board. And it has become so involved, and with so many legal entities there, I think it was probably about the better part of 15 years ago, we decided administration can handle this and bring it to us after the fact or notify us, because there is so much involved and so much gray area for that we would trip over our own tongues.
And as we talked about the 2020 data, certainly when we look at the last 3 years of data, we have had an increase, and this is not special education related, this is student related, of behaviors that have made it to when I was deputy superintendent with Dr. Delgado before me, and now Mr. Scaling, compared to where we were 15 years ago. That's just, it's a fact. So do with it what you want, but it would bog down this entity if we were to go through that. And remember, it has to happen within 10 days. So that means we could potentially be having 3 or 4 meetings within 6 school days, right? And so the process that we use, I think, is better for not only the people at this table, but better for the family too, because they're now having a situation that isn't disclosed publicly. We're able to really find out different ways of supporting the families. And our goal, of course, is to bring the students back when it's appropriate and to have support not only when they come back, but develop support along the way. And I'm happy to discuss that with anyone individually or as the board if you want to talk more about that. But it's just not, it's not the days of, you screwed up, we'll see you in a year, good luck, right? That's long gone, right? There's a lot of supports that we put in place if a student has to be long-term suspended or expelled.
Yeah. Well, part of that, at least for our students with disabilities, is because we still have an obligation to provide them with a free, appropriate public education, whether we suspend or even when we expel them. And a lot of districts don't realize that and forget that they still have to provide access to the general education curriculum, access to their services and supports so that they can make progress on their goals and objectives. We still have to educate our students with disabilities that are IDEA eligible. Not true for 504 unless you do that for all kids, but for our IDEA eligible students, we still have that obligation unless they leave us and go someplace else. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, one more question for you. How do we go ahead and educate those students when they have to be removed from the district for up to 45 days? What are our practices for that?
So I'll speak in generalities. Typically, a student is enrolled into one of our online programs. We had our own teachers doing online education during that time. We also would give an opportunity for Graduation Alliance, which we partnered with, or Edgenuity is another company that we partner with. A parent always has the option of choosing their own educational choice if they choose to do so. And so for a general education, all students are general education students first. So for a student that does not have a manifestation, an MDR finding, that's typically how we approach it. Yep.
All right.
How'd I do navigating that one?
You did perfect.
Okay.
I mentioned the unilateral removal piece of it in terms of what Congress has said we can do for weapons, drugs, or serious bodily injury. Again, those federal definitions apply, and I think I have a slide on them. So I've already talked about kind of that judicial intervention, the Honig injunction or expedited due process hearing, so I don't need to go through that. All right, serious bodily injury. This is one where many people don't realize how high the standard is, right? And the IDEA adopts that definition of serious bodily injury from the U.S. Criminal Code, right? In the way that it defines it as bodily injury which involves substantial risk of death, extreme physical pain, protracted and obvious disfigurement, protracted loss or impairment of the function of a bodily member, organ, or mentally faculty, right? So here are some court cases that found that a broken nose is not serious bodily injury. It hurt. They bled. No one's disputing that they were injured, but it's not serious bodily injury. A case where a principal got a swollen knee based on an interaction with a kid, had this, he should have sought medical attention, but he did not. Court said, well, if it was serious bodily injury, you went to the doctor and you didn't. Same would be true of where people ignore their doctor's advice, right? And they're going to say, they're going to look at all of these facts, right? Because we're looking for that extreme physical pain. Well, if you were in extreme physical pain, you would not have ignored your medical advice. Even if it's going to be something that you are going to be in discomfort or pain or whatever for a long period of time, they're not going to get it to where it needs to be within this definition of serious bodily injury. Contusions, concussions, in and of itself has not necessarily been found to be serious bodily injury. Okay? We have seen some court cases that said if someone had a severe concussion, which included intense headaches, nausea, and missed work, I will say if you missed a day of work, it probably is not going to climb the mountain. Okay? We're looking at something that is a little bit more long-term than that, right? But this is, again, it's very fluid. The specific facts of the circumstances are going to be very important, but this is where we're at. If the staff member or the kid had medical treatment where 2 drugs failed to provide pain relief and was characterized as the worst pain in her life, that was actually a case that came out of Michigan. I remember when that case was decided, because one of my colleagues handled that case for the school district, that was one that was kind of rare. And when it was characterized as the worst pain in that particular staff member's life, it was couched in terms of the things that they were able to do before the injury, what they couldn't do after the injury, and what was going to be the long-term impact on their ability to be able to do those things that they used to do prospectively, right? So it got more into that protracted loss or impairment piece is how they got there. I illustrate those just to show you can be hurt, you can be injured. It's not enough. It has to be something more than that. Weapon, I don't have the definition of weapon here, but what I will tell you, for the definition of weapon, it has to be an object or something that is readily capable of causing death or serious bodily injury. All right? So most courts have said that ordinary objects in the school environment do not constitute a dangerous weapon as defined under the IDEA. There's cases about scissors where, the kid picked up scissors and the court's like, wait a minute, so you're telling me that you give your staff scissors that are weapons and things of that nature? And so brooms, computer stuff, they don't typically say that those are going to constitute a dangerous weapon as defined under the IDEA. Now, a lot of times it is going to depend on the age of the kid and whether they're a puny or scrawny kid or whether they're a strong kid, right? The more puny kid, the younger the kid, the less likely them wielding the broom and threatening people is going to be considered a dangerous weapon. Can it hurt them? Absolutely. Is it going to realistically cause them death if they hit them with the broom? No. Is it going to potentially cause serious bodily injury? I guess it could, but they don't live in the land of possibilities. They want to know if it's a realistic thing. And if it's not realistic, they're not going to say it's serious bodily injury. That's why age matters. Strength of kid matters when you're looking at and evaluating whether or not you have a dangerous weapon. Right. I talked about the shortened school day, so I'm not going to go there again. Virtual distance learning can be an option to educate students with disabilities, but please make sure that those decisions are made by the IEP team. We cannot, as an administration, unilaterally place a kid due to behavior on a virtual learning or distance learning platform. You can't do that. That violates the law. It must be done as part of an IEP team process, and the IEP team has to determine that it is the student's least restrictive environment and can provide them with FAPE. Okay? All right. I didn't realize how quickly I got done. Any questions, further questions, concerns? Yes?
One more, back to the, what if, is it looking at the lens of a singular day, or is it a consistent measure where the student might, like mental faculty, where a kid is, maybe it's a constant knock them down, they get a contusion one day, the next day it's the same thing, it's a consistency, or is it just through the lens of the one one action, or is it collective?
It depends, because there can be times where the injury can be exasperated by additional conduct, right? And depending on the level of impact of that subsequent harm on the initial harm, it could. I have seen situations where someone has suffered multiple concussions, and it wasn't the one concussion, it was kind of the series of concussions that led to having that long-term, long-lasting impact, and that got you there. But it was just that cumulative effect of things.
One quick question.
Yes.
Have you seen any examples of mental injury, anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress that have penetrated to serious injury?
I haven't seen any, not any case law in Michigan. I think like maybe a year and a half ago, there was a teacher in a different state that raised that type of issue or concern in connection with litigation. And I believe the court did determine that what happened to her constitutes serious bodily injury.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very
Anybody
much
else?
for having me. I appreciate you all.
Hold on, one more.
I just have a question for
sorry.
Dr. Lons. Thank you so
Okay.
much for that. Will this be available on our website? Anything showing this presentation?
Are you okay with that?
Is this public?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So we can, Dan, you and I can talk about where we'll put that.
And can we get a larger copy of this? maybe for
Absolutely.
the next board meeting, because even though it's on, it's available, the eyesight isn't as good as it used to be.
My trifocals struggle with it too. Ms. Coe, thank you very much for coming.
Thank
here
you,
today.
thank you very, very much.
Before we move forward, I just want to thank all of our staff, because I do believe that all of our staff are committed to all of our students. And they work very hard to make sure that all students are cared for and supported in the appropriate manner. So I just want that to be on the record. I know I speak for everyone at the table here, that we appreciate what they bring to the table every day, because the job is challenging. And we're very fortunate to have such a great Walled Lake family to take care of our students. Thank you, Madam President.
I was going to say, absolutely concur with that 100%. Okay, we're going to move on to public commentary. I'm not going to read my little spiel, because you guys all know what you're supposed to do. So we're going to start, and I'm going to start with Monica House.
Hi, I'm Monica House. I'm one of the resource program teachers at Gust Elementary. I'd like to thank the district for our welcome back yesterday and the speaker that we had. I think it was, and I put this in my feedback survey, but I feel like it meant more because it was coming from his heart and not just speaking about something that he's researched and learned, but what he's actually lived. I know we had to punt and go to Central, but I will say it was the easiest welcome back celebration to get out of the parking lot that I've had in my years working here, and I really appreciated that I didn't feel like I was at a concert trying to take half an hour or more to get out of the parking lot. So just as a side note, that worked out. As you know, we had our welcome back with the students, the meet and greet. I think that went really well at our school. Very good turnout, and then we also did popsicles with the principal, and it was just fun seeing the kids all coming back and excited to be in the school and see who their teachers were, all their friends, and I think it's a great way to kick off the school year, and I'm really excited. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine Titus.
Hi, Christine Titus, starting my 21st year in this district as an educator. So welcome back, and I always like to, when I started my class, it was Happy New Year. I know we celebrate it in January, but for me, the new year starts now. Monica stole my thunder a little bit, but I wanted to also thank you for yesterday's opening day. It was inspiring, engaging. It just left us, I think, a lot of us with super great feelings. One of the pieces that I've enjoyed that's a more recent addition is that student panel. It means a lot to us as teachers to hear what we do impacts the students, and the relationships that we've built with them and contributes to their current and their future success. So that's super impactful, and I got to shout out the first year you did it. So it meant a lot. One of the things that the speaker, that Mr. Honeycutt impressed upon me, I like to take little blips and write them down. And one of the things, number one, he reminded me of Robin Williams. Okay, he had that, and I had the opportunity to see Robin Williams in person. And he just had that vibe of the way he worked the stage and everything. So it was very appealing and kept you on your toes, so to speak. But he talked about the positive gossip and how we have to out-headline the naysayers. And I guess that's what I've been personally trying to do when I come to the meetings, and hope to continue to do moving forward, because there have been a lot of naysayers over the last several years, and it's time to change that. So I would also like to welcome our newest / returning board members. Thank you for your service to our students, the staff, and the community of Walled Lake Schools. And then, this is totally off topic, but I have a wondering. At the middle school and high school, they have one-to-one Chromebooks. And I'm wondering if that is on the horizon for elementary students. Having been in elementary now for starting my 10th year, my start of my whole thing was in elementary, but is that going to be coming to elementary at some point? So it's a wondering I have. But again, thank you, and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Ms. Nancy Van Leeuwen.
Well, some of my thunder was stolen, too. I just wanted to congratulate our newest board members, and best of luck. What I'm looking forward to is a board that doesn't have personal vendettas, that's here for all of us, all of our students, all the staff. And as of today, with no experience with you, that's the case. So let's continue. I also wanted to comment on the fact that I know we have a variety of substitute principals, and I think that or assistant principals, that speaks highly of Walled Lake, because the people that are returning to fill those interim positions, some just retired last June, and they're returning. Others are coming back several times to various positions, and I think it speaks not only to our central administration, but it speaks to what Walled Lake is as a whole. They are committed to this district and are willing to sacrifice their retirement to some degree, their free time, their ability to do other things, to come in here and work for us, and I think that's a real tribute to the district. I also was not present, but watched the video of the 6 former students that spoke at the meetings yesterday. And one of the things that comes to me as they're reminiscing about their years in school is not that they passed the test, is not that they succeeded in some artificial standard that was established by the Michigan Department of Education or the federal government or somebody out there. It was something that a teacher in a classroom did with them that impacted their lives all the way to the future. And I think that all of us have had that experience. There's somebody that you dealt with in your experience as a student. And I think those are the memories that we have, and I think we need to highlight them. I think we need our staff to know that they're appreciated for that kind of work, for their interaction with the students, for their caring about the students. It's not, did they master every single thing on that test? It's not fully the data. Is Walled Lake #1 in everything? It's, are our students appreciated, respected? And I think in Walled Lake they are. So thank you. Here's to a good year.
Thank you. We're going to move on to administrative commentary. Dr. Lons.
Thank you, Madam President. We'll start with Mrs. Kohansky.
Thank you, Dr. Lons. It's been a really busy couple of weeks as we've been getting prepared for all of the great things that have taken place over the last few days here in the district. Just really wanted to highlight thanking the staff that did a lot of volunteering of their time to participate in professional learning over the last few weeks. Those are staff that I just highly regard in going above and beyond in order to, enrich their learning and be more prepared for our learners when they come back next week. And we had a really successful new teacher orientation. I'm sure Dr. Hamke will talk about that. But also our Homegrown Institute, I've done new principal orientation with some of our new admin that are with us, and it's just been a real pleasure. And I can tell that everybody's, looking forward to seeing students and welcoming everyone back next week. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Muir.
And similarly, so we were really excited earlier this week to have 2 days of professional learning with our transportation staff as well as our paraprofessional staff, and just to see the level of dedication that those professionals have with our students each and every day, and the excitement about acquiring new skills and making sure that they're really prepared for students as they come back. So we're looking forward to an exciting new year, and I think they're appreciative of the time that was spent with them.
Thank you, Ms. Muir. Dr. Hamke.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Kohansky. Last week we had our new teacher orientation. We hired around 40 teachers, many new teachers right out of college, some teachers from different experiences and backgrounds, some from other states. So specifically looking to come to Walled Lake. So it was a great experience, and they learned a lot about Walled Lake, our systems and our structures, and they're ready to take off on Monday. They're great. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Omer.
Thank you, Dr. Lons. Again, as we've already mentioned, there's no budget for a state day. Not surprising, unfortunately, because I was looking back at some comments, and that was kind of a prediction that we wouldn't have them by June 30th back in May, and unfortunately it doesn't look like we're going to have that until by October 1st, so not great news. On a better note, we are doing some initiatives in payroll. We're working on an electronic timesheet. We're looking to do a pilot program, which we have started with our food service staff, our early childhood, and our primetime staff in an effort to help them report their time, but also help us become a little bit more efficient. We'll be looking to do a pilot program with 3 of our schools eventually, but we're looking to do some training because we want to make sure that it's successful as we move forward with those types of initiatives. And kudos to the payroll staff in conjunction with assistance from the HR to try to get that rolling and working through those processes to make us more efficient. And that's all led by Sherry Davis and an amazing team that we have in payroll that is really cranking through trying to get people paid on a daily basis or for upcoming for the new year as well. The other initiatives are good news, bad news, if you will. Our student services certainly is working like crazy to enroll students. The bad news of that is that there's a lot of late enrollees this time around. I'm not sure exactly what's happening. There's a couple of theories out there, and we'll test that. But in the last 3 days, we've had over 70 new enrollees. And that's on top of 200 that are still in the portal. So they're working very diligently, led by Patty Harthen. I appreciate the staff that's doing that, to get them in the school by next Monday, but it makes it a little bit more challenging. So I appreciate all the hard work that they're going through. So, and we'll keep doing that and make sure, we'll see what happens for our October count. So looking forward to the start of school and getting those kids into their classrooms and having a great year ahead. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Omer. Mr. Durkin.
He threw you off there, didn't he? Thank you, Dr. Lons. It's as we talk about, school year starting next week. We had a lot of amazing things happening this summer, so we appreciate everyone who shared their summer activities with us, all the kids who participated in our summer camps, So I just want to give a shout out to Jason and Pam for all their work encapsulating everything and social media, and for everyone who engaged in that content. Our back to school learning should be out in your mailboxes by now. No idea what's happening with my voice there. And I do have a bit of homework. I know we have 3 people in the audience, but hopefully for people watching at home, I do get the pleasure of giving the first homework assignment of the school year, and that is our first day of school picture signs, or signs for pictures. So please feel free to print those off. We have some here in our board office. Should have some out at the schools as well. And we look forward to a great year.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Scaling.
Thank you, Dr. Lons. Would like to thank our technology team who spent many hours this week and in previous weeks getting our students the devices, making sure their logins were working, and making sure they're prepared for Monday. They spent a lot of time making sure that registration was completed online for families who were there and needed to do that. So I want to thank them for donating a lot of their time and really working to make sure things go as seamless as possible when students come back on Monday. Also wanted to wish congratulations and good luck to our athletic teams who began practices last week and other activities, and they'll begin competitions if they haven't already very shortly. So good luck to them. And I want to thank all of the coaches and our administrative team and Mr. Swinehart for all their hard work in getting the season up and running smoothly.
Thank you, sir. A few things I'd like to highlight. Opening day I thought was fantastic at Central, so thank you to the Central staff for accommodating the last-minute switch. Nothing would have made people a little bit more grumpy than being at Northern, and with the temperature in the auditorium there being about 150 degrees. So I'm glad we had another option that we could use, and it was a fantastic place to hold an event. Thank you to Mrs. Kohansky and her team for the PD for our teachers. From what I've heard, and I'm looking forward to the feedback, so please, anyone listening, please make sure you fill out the feedback. We do take that very seriously, and we do adjust opening day based on the feedback that we receive, so I'm excited to continue to see that feedback. I did have one of our fantastic paraprofessionals stop me and say how happy they were with the PD that they received earlier the week that you alluded to. So thank you to you and your team, Ms. Muir, for putting together a fantastic event for our paraprofessionals. Our staff officially came in yesterday and today, although I'm confident that many of our staff, other than at Northern, because they weren't allowed in the building, not because they weren't dedicated, have been in for not only days before this, but weeks before this, making sure that our students are ready to go and ready to be welcomed on Monday. And interesting, I thought this is a great story that talks a lot about the tradition that Walled Lake has and the Walled Lake family. And I don't use that as a trite phrase. All of you know me well enough that I don't blow smoke. If I believe something, I say what it is. And this really, to me, exemplified that family feel that we have. I was walking out of Central to go to my car, and I think she was maybe 13 because she was a new student teacher, and at least that's how, how old she looked to me at my age. And she was so excited to be at Walled Lake Central, and she was so excited to share her story with me. It's fantastic. Like, those are the things that get me pumped up, is when I have a young adult sharing just how excited they are to do what they want to do, to talk to me about their craft. And she ended up sharing that she was from Walled Lake Central. She graduated from Walled Lake Central, and that she worked very hard to be placed back in Walled Lake. She would have preferred Walled Lake Central, but she wanted to be back in Walled Lake. And that's a testament to what all 1,400 of our staff do every day, is that they come so committed to our school community, not only just our students, not only the parents, but to each other. And students can feel that, parents can feel that, our staff can feel that, and that there are other opportunities out there to teach and to work, right? We're not the only game in business. But as someone who's worked in many different districts, I can say that for a district our size, to have the level of family feel that we have and the level of commitment to want to work in Walled Lake. And I know that Dr. Hamke has had many stories like that. I certainly had that when I was hiring people, that they were just so excited to be back here. And those are people that we've hired that have stayed here. Like, they could have gone other places, but they haven't. And they've stayed here because of the family feel that we have, starting with the building administration and working all the way through all of our buildings. So that was just great. And I love her gumption where she said, and if you want to see some great teaching, feel free to stop by anytime. I'm like, I like you. That's fantastic. Let's go. So thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. We're going to start with you, Mr. Lippett.
Right in the fire. Thank you, Madam President. Yes, so first I want to thank the members of our board for their trust and support during the interview process. I can speak for myself and Mr. Smith and Mrs. Crafton, Mrs. West, and now Dr. Zellner. It is not easy sitting at that table. It is. I've done it twice now. It's not fun, but we do it because we all want to advocate for this district, for our community, for the students, the parents, everyone who touches this community and this board. And so I feel it a privilege to be part of this. I will honor this appointment by being a good comrade to you all, and I'm looking forward to working with you each. So thank you very much for your trust. Second, I did want to talk about opening day, but everyone stole all my thunder. So I'm just going to say this. First off, the production was fantastic. I know it was kind of on the fly because of Walled Lake Central and all that stuff, but once again, I've had the privilege now of doing 2 of these. It was fantastic. It had, if the desired effect was to inspire and get people excited And to have people roll out of there thrilled to begin this year, it did that job extremely well. I agree with you, Dr. Lons, that I think one of the things I loved most was seeing the young teachers, people that with their shining eyes and their exuberant spirits, so excited to be part of this process and to get that opportunity to sit with their peers and learn from the experience and get a chance to meet people like Mr. Honeycutt and others. It was a tremendous opportunity. I will say on a side note, didn't realize you were a typing teacher. I could have used that keyboarding now. I still do the what do they call it, four-finger pecking or whatever they call it. So that would have been helpful for me. And I also want to echo what some of our public speakers said, that we all can think of teachers who have inspired us in our lives. And at the end of the day, we will not remember the content that is learned in Waldorf schools. As great as we are as an educational system, it's the teachers who inspire us, who teach us to think beyond the classroom. And I just want to say it was thrilling to hear stories from the alumni. Kudos to you, Mr. Scaling, for once again making that so powerful for everybody who witnessed it. So thank you for that. Lastly, some of you may recall a couple years ago, Waldeck Schools adopted a gun-safe resolution here for the district, and we were all thrilled. For those of us who are gun owners or part of the gun community, we were thrilled to see that. Some of you might also know that state of Michigan also passed its safe storage law this past year, which now requires gun owners to safely store their firearms in any home where there is likely to be children. And then it's important that we also understand that next week is Smart Week, which is built on the Be Smart framework of secure gun storage. And it kind of reinforces the notion we should all be recommitting ourselves to safe gun storage. If you don't understand what that means or how you could be a better steward of health and safety through gun ownership and gun safety, I encourage you and those in the audience and those who are watching on TV to go to besmartforkids.org. Thank you very much.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam President. First, I want to start off by saying thank you to all the teachers and staff and getting all the rooms ready for everything for the first day. We know there's many emotions to this first day that is coming up. I looked at the timeline, and I know I have some friends, and this is, as we've been probably seeing it shared around, but there are many babies that were born that this is their first time. The COVID kindergartners are going to be starting, so it's going to be an interesting time with some of that, as well as my son is one of them. The COVID kindergartners are now starting middle school. So it's these different dynamics, these different emotions that you're kind of doing. There's a lot of firsts going on. We're going to have a lot of new teachers, wonderful out there that were coming in here, and even teachers maybe moving up, changing within their K through 5, whatever their experience in. There's just going to be a lot. You're going to have a lot of new kids that are coming to middle school, going to high school. Some of, among you, some seniors that it's their last year, so that's going to be another cherished time and very bittersweet, I think. So enjoy those moments, I guess, just as a parent, as both my kids are finally at middle school together, finally at the same school for 1 year. So it'll be enjoyable. Just give each other grace and kindness and thoughtfulness and help each other out. I tell my own children, they're going to be kids who are so many emotions, anxiety, apprehension, joy, excitement, whatever you want to think about, just going through not only the first day, but kind of coming back to a new school setting. We have some, specifically at Smart, we have some Glengarry kids that are now coming there. It's a whole new atmosphere, trying to build within that culture. So there's going to be a lot of changes, and I think it's really, we as parents, we as community members, board members, our kids, we imprint on our children. So what I'm saying is have that grace out there. Give some kindness, give some joy, give some high fives, whatever you need. Appreciate all the teachers and everything that they do. And of course, be safe. There's going to be some new drivers out there. And from my professional life, I will say there are detours, so be aware of traffic, specifically on Wise and Union Lake was extended. So busing is most likely going to be late. We'll just say that. We probably know that's going to happen. So Be aware, take more time in the mornings, and I'm sure as my daughter's bus, I think, is always late, CHS that first week coming up Union Lake. So just be aware of that. I want to thank you to my fellow board members. Again, welcome Mr. Lippett once again, and Dr. Zellner. I hope to have a great year working together collaboratively and really working on a lot of the things. Hopefully we get a budget at some point. We'll see. Push those legislators, I know, to do their job. Again, it's funny because professional life, school board, I have a road funding that I'm important. I have school funding, they're fight anyways. I have both sides. And I just want to give a special shout out to my daughter and all of her friends. They're going out for volleyball next week, so she's probably watching. And also to my son and the inaugural season of the White Lake Wolves. Their first game is on Sunday, so hopefully my son and his team does well. Just want to give those shouts out. Thanks.
Thank you. Mrs. Grafton.
Hi, everyone. I first want to share the enthusiasm for the beginning of the school year. I've had the opportunity to interact with a handful of teachers, and I know that they appreciated having some relaxation in the summer, and they are busting their tails to get ready for this school year. So I'm just so appreciative for the teachers, the paras, the principals, the HR department, who's been killing it in hiring, and vacancies that came up in the summer that we weren't planning for, and you ran beautiful processes from what I've heard, and I'm excited for the new teachers that we have joining the team. I also want to give a pat on the back to our former Geisler teachers that are returning to new buildings, and I've seen in social media their enthusiasm moving into new classrooms and new teaching assignments. I also want to remind everyone at the middle schools that former Geisler students are joining new communities. And so give some grace, give some patience, a smile, a welcome. I know there's a lot of middle schoolers that are nervous, and all of us adults can provide that safe and welcoming environment for them. Building on Dr. Lanz's theme of Walled Lake as family, I wanted to share with our family here in Walled Lake that in the middle of July, I received a cancer diagnosis, and I'm going to fight like heck to serve with you all for the 6-year term that I was elected for. I'm going to be as open as people will allow me to be, because it was a regular routine colonoscopy with no symptoms that caught this. So early detection is key. Prep isn't fun, but do it, because a colonoscopy isn't glamorous, but cancer is the trade-off sometimes. So get your colonoscopy if you haven't already. You might see me in the next board meeting or two with some ADA sort of related accommodations. God willing, I will be at all these meetings, but just wanted to let folks know what we're dealing with, and that I will continue to be committed to our district throughout this entire process. On a final note, I would appreciate a little bit of grace from our friends and the community if I'm a little slower to respond to an email or a text or a phone call, but I will be here for the students and the staff of Walled Lake as long as I can be. So thank you all, and I think that's it for today.
Thank you. Dr. Zellner.
That was exciting. Hi, everyone. It's hard to go after that, because we wish you all the best of luck in your treatment. And I know I speak for the other cancer survivors like myself, that I know the road is hard, and you can do it. And yes, I also benefited from early detection myself, so I definitely appreciate that. Also, every year I say, boy, does it take a lot of energy to launch a school year. It just takes a lot of energy. I was so sad I couldn't be with everyone at this. I have serious FOMO, but I was at someone else's opening day because I am also an educator. I don't even want to say how 20-something years I've been in this game, and my heart is with all of you, and I just echo everything everyone has said. I also want to thank the board for letting me sit in front of you and babble, and then allowing me to come join you. I have always wanted to know what the school board does behind closed doors, and now I know. There's not as many jokes as I expected, but we can change that. Also, I've been talking to a lot of the little kindergartners who are starting kindergarten on Monday for the very first time and asking them what they're looking forward to for this school year. And they're so excited to meet their teachers and to be in the buildings. And their infectious enthusiasm for school just reminds us what we're all doing here. I also got to get the other end of that experience by joining Walled Lake Central Shout Out Vikings 30th reunion on Friday. Shout out to all my classmates. We're still coming together, which I think says a lot, to echo some of our public comments. We are definitely a community that cares for one another. And as I am going to be at the senior sunrise with 24 bagels for my first class, you almost made me cry. So if I'm crying a little bit this year, it's all those first last. So again, thanks to everyone for all their hard work and for already doing a bang-up job bringing everything together. The last thing I'll say is I really appreciated that presentation we had, because I always think about Judy Human. Judy Human was a polio survivor. And when she showed up for kindergarten, her principal told her, "You're a fire hazard, and you can't be here." And I know she said Congress passed IDEA and the ADA and Section 504, but they did it because of disability advocates like Judy Human. She was also the first wheelchair-using teacher in the state of New York. And she lied about what she wanted to do for her job so that she could be in front of kids and join this amazing profession. And that is why we do that, because that happened in the 70s, which for some of us is when we were born. It's not that long ago. It's not that long ago, and that's why we have to be proactive. What I heard in that presentation was not what if, what if, what if. It was, we are doing the right things for kids with disabilities, and we are going to make sure that when a flower doesn't bloom, we adjust the environment in which it grows and not the flower, and that we can do that here and we can do it together, and I know we can because of all the talent in this district.
Thank you. Mrs. West.
Welcome back to everybody. I hope everybody's excited for the new school year. I know I am. Anxious to get back to the classroom with my 4-year-olds. So it's nice to not be on the other end of the senior year this year. So good luck to you with that one. I really enjoyed going to Glengarry's meet and greet today. It was really nice to see all the excited faces, both staff and students. I think it's really wonderful that we're doing this because I think it helps putting those faces to the names and kind of puts an edge to that anxiety that kids get, and even the teachers, frankly. Just knowing who's coming in, and so that's a really nice thing. For those who may be anxious about maybe a reputation that you've heard of regarding both a staff member or a child, just try to put that aside. I know from my own experience, I remember as a teenage girl, I remember getting a teacher that I really did not want because of a reputation this person had. And I remember going to class that first day after begging my mom to please call the counselor and please change my schedule. And I cried and cried. We argued. But I went to class and I remember thinking, she's not so bad. And I went the second day, I was like, I don't know what everybody's talking about. She ended up being my favorite teacher. She came to my wedding. I want you, just please give somebody the respect that they deserve and give them a chance because you never know. So shout out to Mrs. McGrath. Many years ago, but like those people, they, like you said, they still stay in our hearts, and we bring them back to us. So I wish everybody the very best first day and a wonderful school year.
Mr. Siegler.
As Mr. Smith was alluding to with the roads and with our buses, I think one of the things that we might want to remind our community is yellow actually means red. As we move into this school year, I think a lot of parents are still not aware of the change in the laws, and if we could possibly get something out to them, I think it would be beneficial. I've spent a lot of time over the summer trying to make some headway on the budget. And as Mrs. Omer said, probably isn't going to happen. The key words I'm hearing are impasse, stalemate, roads, and shutdown. If we are fortunate, I think we might see a budget in October, but there is no guarantee on that at all. I would like to thank my colleagues. I have taken upon myself to be the share of news coming out of Lansing or that would affect us within our state. I will continue to do that over the course of this year. Fortunately for me, I've been elected chair of the MASB Government Relations Committee, so I wake up every morning with probably 10 to 15 messages from different parts of the state, and I look forward to sharing that with everybody here because I think it will help us as a board grow and move forward. And if I overdo it, please let me know. Opening day was probably one of the best I have ever attended. The enthusiasm of the staff, the enthusiasm of the teachers. I did have an opportunity also to interface with a new teacher who said, I'm supposed to be meeting somebody here, and I asked her who, and she said, and I said, I know who you're looking for, and I said, did you set up a meeting spot? And she said, well, we set up a meeting spot for Northern, but we didn't do anything for Central. So I said, okay, let's go outside, and when I see her, I'll flag her down, and I think I have a new friend for life. But, you know, when I was listening to the speaker relate his life challenges and what he gained through the process of his challenges in life, I think it was something that every person on our staff could identify at every level. And he did it with such empathy and feeling and a little bit of Robin Williams and Joe Pesci in there that I can't wait to see him again in the future. I actually recommended that to the MASB that they might try to make him a keynote for next year or the year after because I think he was that good. In regard to the student panel, it just shows you how we as a community, and I'm going to go back on my Walled Lake Community School District kick, can develop and have developed such well-rounded, eloquent contributors to society, and in some instances, our community still, as they are back here as parents or as teachers. And as Dr. Zollner and I were having coffee one day, and she said something about, yeah, I graduated from Central, and I sat there and I chuckled for a minute. I said, I'm probably the only school board member in the state of Michigan who was sitting with 4 school board members that he had actually signed their diplomas. So it gave me pause for a second. But I really look forward to the year. I think we as a board are already growing together. I think our initiatives of trying to get back out into the building and into the district will be beneficial. You know, we're not going to hear everything, all the good news. We're going to hear the bad news too. But that's our job, to be out there to listen and then, you know, help our community grow and understand and help our administration know if there are any concerns within the community. So I really look forward to the school year. I look forward to opening day. I can't wait.
Okay, I'm going to make this quick since, we're all saying the same things. Welcome back. I'm very excited to start our new school year. Our staff, I'm thrilled that you're all back with smiles. Yesterday, I didn't see anything but smiling faces all morning and all afternoon. Our keynote yesterday was fantastic. He was very energizing and very empathetic to what's happening in our culture and in our schools and with our students. And I think that played a big part in how our staff walked out of those first day experiences yesterday. They were all talking about it. They were all exuberant about what he said. They were all very excited to talk with him and share some of their personal stories afterwards. And it was just a feel good, feel great, get going first day. So thank you for all of that because it was great. And I do want to shout out to all of our staff performers yesterday. You all did a great job and very impressed with your skills. So keep that up. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. And we're just going to move on from there. But welcome back. Congratulations to all of our students, all of our new staff. And first day, here we come. Okay, we're moving on to the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we have the approval of minutes for proposed for June 19th special meeting, July 7th, board special committee workshop, July 8th special meeting, our personal recommendations of new hires, retirements, resignations, leave of absence, financial reports for May 2025, disbursements in the amount of $19,407,481, with the balance sheet and statement of revenue and expenditures, unaudited, and investment schedule. You all hoped it was 19,000, right? Purchases under 50,000, employee evaluation management, and Danielson 2011-2013 rubric, frontline education, one-year renewal of $36,271.41 from the general fund. Hold on, got to turn the page. ClassLink, Staff and Student Online Access Management System, Logisoft, one-year annual software license renewal of $46,150 from the general fund. Mr. Siegler.
I move that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Thank you. We're moving on to purchases over 50,000. Dr. Lons.
Vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Hello? Hello? Yes, first day jitters. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Keep me on track. Now we're purchases over 50,000. Dr. Lons?
Thank you very much. Mr. Scaling.
Thank you, Dr. Lons. Microsoft 365 offers a range of tools and features that significantly benefit Walled Lake Consolidated School District. M365 includes essential apps like Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Teams, which facilitate seamless collaboration and communication. It provides robust security features, cloud storage, and collaboration tools. All of these features collectively support staff in maintaining high productivity while ensuring security. We recommend the approval of the renewal of the purchase of Microsoft 365 faculty one-year subscription in the amount of $114,750.70 from the general fund.
Madam President.
Mr. Libet.
I move that the Board of Education approve the renewal purchase of Microsoft 365 A3, A5 faculty one-year subscription Intercom TSG for $114,750.70 from the general fund.
Support.
Discussion. Okay, let's vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Lons.
Mr. Scaling.
Thank you, Dr. Lons. Google Workspace for Education Plus is the most comprehensive edition of our Google's Education Suite, designed to support large-scale digital learning environments with advanced tools for teaching, learning, and administration. Additionally, it provides storage, Google Classroom, and centralized management console. We recommend the approval of the purchase of the Google Workspace for Education Plus annual software license renewal for year 2 agreement in the amount of $54,751.50 from the general fund.
Can I get a motion? Yeah. Mrs. West?
I move that the Board of Education approve the purchase of Google Workspace for Education Plus annual software license renewal, year 2 of 2-year agreement for $54,751.50 from the general fund.
Support.
Discussion. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Lanz.
Mr. Scanlon will give you one more opportunity.
Just one more?
Just for now.
Okay.
There you go.
MDE reopened the 97C site assessment grant and expanded the language to include the assessments of athletic facilities and other gathering/event locations. The grant allows for $2,000 per facility and is non-competitive. Walled Lake was awarded $62,000 to have site assessments made on 31 sites. These assessments will take place in August and September. Secure Environment Consultants who performed previous site assessments for the district will conduct real-time on-site evaluation of athletic fields, facilities, and event spaces. Their report will provide feedback and recommendations that will help us continue to provide the safest environments for our school communities that we can. We recommend the approval of Secure Environmental Consultants to conduct facility assessments district-wide for a total cost of $62,000, funded through the 97C grant.
Mrs. Cap.
Mr. Siegler.
I move that the Board of Education approve the Secure Environment Consultants to conduct facilities assessments district-wide for a total cost of $62,000, funded through a 97C grant.
Discussion. Mr. Siegler.
So this is basically just a pass-through fund, right?
It is a pass-through, correct.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Lanz.
Mrs. Kowalski.
Thank you, Dr. Lanz. On the agenda today is our partner school contract renewal. Walled Lake applied and was selected in 2022-23 to join Teachers College in their partner school work, which is a school-based professional development for teachers over the course of the year with staff developers who model, demonstrate, and coach staff in the use of our units of study in reading, writing, and phonics. It's an honor to be selected for this advanced professional learning coaching work, and this model is wonderful. Our teachers have loved partner school support and provided really strong feedback about this. The 4 schools participating are Wixom, Oakley Park, Hickory Woods, and Walled Lake L, and they're excited to work as a partner school with Advancing Literacy Group from Teachers College. We appreciate Teachers College support of implementing our units of study across K-5, but we also appreciate that they bring a fresh, new perspective to literacy work from new and updated research in the field. Teachers College is a strong institution of higher learning for teachers for over 150 years, and it's our recommendation from the Learning Services team. This work continue with the 4 schools selected. The amount for the Teachers College Advancing Literacy Partner School work is $118,800, which is paid for by the 35J Literacy Grant through the state of Michigan.
A motion?
Mrs. Kaplan.
Mr. Siegler.
I move that the Board of Education approve the Teacher College Advancing Literacy Partner School work for $118,800 from the 35J grant.
Support.
Discussion.
I have a question.
Go.
I was just curious how the schools were chosen that had the opportunity to receive this grant money.
I believe it was reverse alphabetical order. No, I'm just kidding. It's
like, really? You never know.
Actually, that would make it a lot simpler. And so the Teachers College Advancing Literacy actually looks for schools that are kind of primed and ready to take that on. So we work directly with the principals as well as surveying their staff. We have, everybody wants it, but it's one of those things that to manage it becomes really tricky. So what we're doing is we're really looking at an implementation and rotation of this. So 2 of the schools, Wixom and Oakley Park, have been partner schools. Well, we took a year hiatus, if you'll remember, as a board, but they've been partner schools now and receiving this this coaching and modeling and support since 2022-23. We're going to be looking at moving and rotating those supports around to our other schools. So we look at teacher willingness to participate, principal willingness to support it, because it does take a little bit of structure and scheduling to have those Teachers College staff developers come in, model. They're setting up in classrooms, working with the teachers and modeling with the students and things. So it's not an easy thing. They don't just show up. It takes a lot of pre-planning. So we're excited to offer that to the 4 schools again this year, and then next year we'll be looking at adding a few others. So like I said, everybody wants it, but we have to spread that around as our system's capacity to support it is only so much.
Thank you. Also, can you repeat which schools are receiving? So you said Wixom and Oakley Park?
Wixom, Oakley Park, Walled Lake L, and Hickory Woods.
Thank you.
You bet.
Dr. Lutz?
Yes, sir.
Do we expect this opportunity with this grant money to impact iReady scores?
Oh, absolutely. It's directly tied to the curriculum that we're using to help advance our learners.
Okay, so this is, it's an opportunity, I think, to talk more about this. I think we should be talking more about this.
If I may.
If I may say, this is the number one concern of our entire district. We should be talking about this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the things I can share is that after several years of implementation, we want to be looking at growth scores in our schools where partner schools has been implemented in terms of that partnership. One of the nice things is, and we just started this last year, is that we've added on an additional day when the partner school teacher staff developers come in, where they work with literacy leaders from all the other schools too. So even though the school, all 12 elementary schools aren't hosting these staff developers, they will spend a day, and we have literacy leaders from the other elementaries, the 8 other elementaries, coming to participate in a day of training and staff development. Looks a little bit different than the embedded partner school coaching in the classroom, but it's similar. So, and we are going to be looking at data outcomes for that. So thank you, Mr. Lippett. We find it really critical too.
Yeah, and I would invite the district to publicize this, to talk more about it so the community's aware of it. That's all.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Dr. Zellner?
I have one question. Is there a plan to have those teachers then work with the teachers in other schools because they're becoming leaders themselves, or is that part of the model?
Ms. Kransky?
Yep, actually, that's a scale-up model that we're working on. So those literacy leaders that are attending from all the schools are part of our building leadership teams, and we're really honing in on that work around small group instruction to meet the needs of all learners within the classroom and building those skills. So absolutely, we're building teacher leaders, but they're going back to implement change across their system at the building level. So we're excited about that.
I agree with Mr. Lippett that it should be publicized, and I would love to hear from the teachers what's happening in their classrooms too.
So I think there's a couple things to add on here. One is that this is one part of the teacher leadership that we work through. Galileo is another, and they're not mutually exclusive. And we also have, for maybe 3 years now, maybe 4, we have instructional specialists at all of our elementaries, where not every school district does that. And typically around half of their day is spent specifically helping our teachers be better and honing their craft in this particular area. So this is something that we've been dedicated to and we continue to be dedicated to. For the staffs to participate in this program, we do provide survey feedback for them so that, again, we can take that feedback and see how we can better support our staffs and use this program more effectively.
Thank you. Anything, Mrs. West?
Is this more for just K through 2, like the lower elementary, or are we doing it broadly across the whole board of elementary schools?
Ms. Kransky?
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. West. It is K-5.
Okay.
So we have K-5 staff developers. They'll come and do a day of K-2 work, then they'll come and do a day of 3-5 work, and then they'll come for a day where they work with those literacy leaders from all the other elementaries at every grade level. So we have wide and broad representation of folks learning and taking that learning back and then implementing change at the building level with their building leadership teams and their principals.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Lanz?
Ms. Kransky, let's keep it going.
You bet. Back to me. You also have on the agenda tonight the renewal of iReady Curriculum Associates. Walled Lake has over a decade of partnership with using Curriculum Associates iReady as a diagnostic of reading assessment and math assessment for students in grades K through 8. This tool has helped our district closely monitor student learning and growth, and it's also a valuable tool that our system uses to look at trends over time, making curricular and instructional adjustments as necessary, all the way down to the classroom level. So we have support in helping teachers learn how to use that. The data collected is also a really valuable use for our multi-tiered system of supports, as well as an integral measure of our progress on our district improvement goals, our MyKIP goals, and I share those with the board annually too. Each summer, iReady is used in our summer school programs, and it's also used at home for continued practice for students, so it does have the capabilities of being used as in the home setting. iReady is an adaptive assessment, so that means it can quickly determine foundational skills and other missing skills that students need to gain proficiency in reading and math. In August of 21, the state of Michigan has legislated districts are required to give a benchmark assessment with approved assessment vendors. Curriculum Associates is one of those approved vendors by the state. And Public Act 48 is the one that has governed that legislative change. The annual renewal cost for iReady Curriculum Associates is $382,078.50, which says comes out of the general fund, but there is a blend of some grants and also some state reimbursement for that cost, which also offsets it. So,
Thank you. A motion?
Madam President,
Ms. Crafton.
I move that the Board of Education approve the renewal purchase of the iReady diagnostic tool for $382,078.50 from the general fund and the blended funding model that Ms. Skohansky just described.
Support.
Discussion. Mrs. West.
Approximately how much are we getting out of grants and state funding to kind of offset the general fund?
I'm not sure if we have the exact number, but we might have an estimate.
ballpark it.
If you can ballpark it for us.
Yes, I can ballpark it. So it's around $100,000 in the state reimbursement. So that would drop that down to around $282,000. And then we also offset a portion of this cost with at-risk funding. So a portion of the student population in K-8 that qualifies for free and reduced lunch and other forms of at-risk factors, roughly around 38% of the kids. So another 38%, I'd have to do a little bit of factoring there. I can get you the numbers specifically, but it knocks it down. I don't know, Mrs. Omer.
Let's say around 180.
Let's say around another
give or
180,
take.
you know? So it does bring it down, so it's not the full amount, but there is offsets in there, and we do utilize those and take advantage of them.
50% of the.
Thank you. I just was curious, especially with the state funding and everything going on right now, that want to make sure that we're benefiting as much as possible.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith, did you have a question?
Yes. Ms. Kaplan. I did provide these questions to Dr. Lons. I don't expect an answer today, but I kind of wanted to, just the public, just for food for thought, I guess it's just my question is I have about 8 questions for this. Is iReady the only education software? You did state that you kind of alluded to multiple, and Dr. Lons has stated that. I'm just kind of curious. The other ones, like what other surrounding districts use, maybe why they chose those? Have we investigated the return on investment? How many years have we been utilizing it? I know we need to have years so we can have data, but I'm kind of curious if the model is working for our district. Maybe investigate that. It's not going to determine my vote today or anything. It's just looking ahead to next year. How do we measure growth and achievement while utilizing iReady? When we know that some kids, I can tell you probably numerous cases in my own personal life where we have kids with test anxiety and other issues of trying to maintain that and sit in front of a computer. Is this the best use of the time? I'm sure all of these can have all different studies, data, and things like that. I'm just kind of curious about that. How does the system help under and overachievers? I know you said it's adaptive, and I've sat down with my own children going through it, and there's been a lot of frustration with different things, and maybe they were put into the wrong level and they weren't quite ready, and just, curiosity. Are we using, I guess I look at, it's weird, I guess sometimes I joke that, I guess I'm a millennial, I don't know what age I am, but sometimes, that zennial, whatever age I am, that sometimes I feel like I'm the old, my kids will probably say, like the boomer style, that we're using tech too much. So I'm just wondering, like, if we're putting forth this technology too soon in front of children, and is this utilizing these computers and just all of a sudden screen? And I'm just kind of curious, again, it's just curiosity about these things. How early do they start, like we said, and how do educators view it? That's my last question, is how do all the educators in the system that are implementing it, that are seeing their children? I know from a parental side, when I see my kids my daughter is explicitly told me to ask you to get rid of iReady, just because she's a kid, and she will tell that to everyone. So just some of those questions just to get going. Again, I'm supportive and everything. It's just thinking throughout the year. And I'm sure you're going to have those benchmarks, those assessments, that data that's going to feed into that. So again, no answer today, just kind of those are, unless you have.
Well, no, we appreciate the questions, and we'll get the answers back to you. I would be relatively convinced that as your children get older and get into high school, that they'll be asking you to ask me to get rid of final exams, too. I'll wait for that conversation.
Dr. Lons, could I just jump in there for one thing? So I appreciate that, Mr. Smith, about the time that the kids are in front of it. I can tell you that, and I'll get back to you on all those answers and things of that nature. I know we're all concerned as teachers too about time in front of screens. I think there's a little bit of maybe a wondering if there's an over-reliance on technology in the classroom versus the human connection that we know that's really important. And I can tell you that in a lot of the AI stuff that's coming out and a lot of AI work, we've had a PD on that, very specific to some AI tools and platforms. It's really about changing the way our teachers interface with our students. So it doesn't replace a teacher. We're not looking for technology to be a teacher. What we're looking for is we're looking to help teachers be more effective in maintaining and creating those connections with students using tools on the side to help us in the way we're crafting our instruction. And with regard to iReady, I did a quick little math thing before the meeting tonight just to kind of look and see what percentage are we? We recommend about 15 minutes of time on an iReady practice lesson every day. And if we spend, I know we're in school around 7 hours, but let's say 6 hours, we'll give everybody time for lunch and recess and passing in hallways and running to the bathroom and those kinds of things. It's about 4% of their day if they did 15 minutes a day on iReady, and not all of our teachers hold fast to that. But if we did that, it would be about 4% of their day in front of an iReady screen, about hoping 96% of their day is in human connections with their teachers. So I just wanted to kind of clear that one up as far as that reliance piece. And I know you have a bunch of other questions, and I talked to Dr. Lons. I'm happy to get those for you soon.
Mr. Lippett?
Yeah, Mr. Smith pretty much clobbered all my questions, so thank you for that. I would like to say that I'm a big fan of benchmarking and best practices, so I would love to know within the context of the highest performing public school districts in the state what their tools are, not just with iReady, but other tools at their disposal. I would love to have access to that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Dr. Zellner?
Yeah, I had already sent this question and got an answer about it, but I think to piggyback off what Mr. Smith said was about some of the supplemental online professional learning that iReady is charging the district for, and what the return is on that investment, how the teachers are viewing that professional learning, and if that's something that should be continued or not, depending on how they're taking that up, because it wasn't nothing. It's not the whole contract, but it's not nothing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Moving on to bid awards. Dr. Lons?
As I said with uniforms, I would love to be able to read this one, but Mrs. Kwansky did the work. You get the credit.
Not a problem. I have before you a musical instrument purchase involving multiple vendors, and you did get a chance to see that in a recent board bulletin. Lots of musical instrument vendors. I'm happy to read it because it's very exciting, but I do have to give props to our music department chaired by Kristen Dudzinski. She did a lot of work with our music department, inventorying equipment and instruments and seeing what's working, what's not working. Really, I asked her to build a scale of critical to workable, and all of those in between. And while we know that this doesn't fix everything, but it's a really great opportunity for us to provide those supports, and we know that it's much needed. So the 2024 bond proposal that included a provision for replacement of some band instruments, since this was an identified need during the exploratory process for that particular bond. To follow through with fulfilling the portion of the need, the administration has worked with the instrumental music department and constructed a comprehensive bid document. The results of the bids were reviewed with the intent to identify instruments that were identified as being critical for replacement, and not exceeding the established budget of $100,000. I also want to thank Vicki Amore in the business office, who worked really closely with Kristen to make sure that the bid process was adhered to very closely. And after an extensive review of those bids and utilizing the criteria that we outlined above, we are asking you to consider approving the following instrument package for your approval that was shared with you in a prior board bulletin. And that would be in the amount of, we got as close as we could to without going over, $99,488.56 coming out of the 2024 bond.
Mrs. West.
I move that the Board of Education approve the bid package and authorize the purchase of musical instruments from multiple vendors as presented, totaling $99,488.56 from the 2024 bond funds.
Support.
Discussion.
I'm sorry, Madam President.
Mr. Lipp.
Just real quick, as the father of 3 self-prescribed orc dorks, I can tell you firsthand that that's what they call themselves, by the way. And that's not my word. This is a really important piece of spend, and it's not just about having the right instruments to produce the outcomes we want for these classes. It's also about attracting this next generation of young people into music. And as we know, elementary school is where it begins, and it builds momentum from there. If you start too late, it's too late. So I just want to reinforce how important this is, and thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes.
Mrs. West.
I just want to say thank you, if the board votes this in. I know just from being in the band room and helping with the band over at Wall Lake Northern and how banged up some of these instruments are, and they're practically not unplayable. So thank you to the community for, approving the bond to do this, because it's so meaningful to some of these students. This is sometimes it's the only outlet they have, so it's really important to them. But I also, just on a side note, with Geisler closing, some of those instruments that were over at Geisler did get dispersed to other schools. And I was there on, Tuesday or Wednesday night during band practice, and the instruments were there in the classroom. And Ms. Hulleberger was so excited about it. She's like, oh, these are my new instruments that came from Geisler. So thank you to everybody for doing this. So I appreciate it.
Welcome.
Anybody else? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Lowndes.
Thank you, Madam President. Almost as exciting as new band instruments.
The pool that never ends.
The water at Walled Lake Western's pool has been a little chilly recently, and that is because the heat exchanger, unfortunately, has failed. And when the bond was looked at in 2019, we believed that that would remain operable. But given that that was, I don't know how many years ago, is that a while ago, it has now gotten to the point where it was end of life, and the cost to maintain it, fix it, and move forward was not worth what a new heat exchanger would give us. Fortunately, we have been able to put a Band-Aid on it, so the pool right now is being heated. Typically, and a piece of equipment like this is anywhere from 6 weeks to 6 months out, so we had to do a stopgap. So we're confident that as confident as we are today, that Band-Aid will stay strong until we get the new heat exchanger. So I'm asking the board to approve Walled Lake Western emergency change order, pool boiler heat exchanger in the amount of $159,476 from the 2019 bond fund that is coming out of our contingency fund.
Mrs. Kaplan.
Mr. Siegler.
I move that the Board of Education approve the emergency change order for the pool boiler and heat exchanger required at Walled Lake Western High School in the amount of $159,476 from the 2019 bond fund.
Support.
Discussion. Mr. Smith.
Sorry to put you on the spot here.
Oh, you're really going to test me because this is my area of strength, boilers.
I guess I'm sure it has through the Mrs. Kaplan. Sorry. Are the other pools, the heat exchangers, hitting their end of life? Were they all? Are we? Is this going to be a thing? I'm just curious.
So yeah, you're really testing my knowledge. So rather than speak out of turn, I'm going to ask to phone a friend and get back to you on that, because I can give you a really solid answer that might be 100% wrong. No problem. Yep. Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Siegler.
I just want to thank Dr. Lowndes for bringing this up, because As we are doing construction in the district, we have change orders. Some of them we never even worry about or see because it is up to Dr. Lons to approve them and go forward. You know, some of the larger ones, I'm very happy that we do know about them because also it validates what we are doing as a board and what we are doing as an administration and how we are watching over the funds for the bond.
Thank you.
Mrs. Kaplan?
Ms. Crafton.
Building on that, I appreciate you, Dr. Lons, because this is exactly what we asked for in the Bond Oversight Committee. So thank you for being responsive. This is exactly what I was hoping we would see.
Happy to. Thank you.
Anybody else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, resolution for board approval of Head Start program. Dr. Lons.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Kransky, you've done such a great job. I'd like to give you one more opportunity tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Lons. This is my annual spiel. I do this every year. In accordance with the federal Head Start performance standards, the Walled Lake Consolidated School District Board of Education is the governing body of the program. So to comply with all federal contract regulations, Walled Lake Schools Head Start is submitting the following items for board approval. Those items were shared with you by Mrs. Davy via one of the board bulletins recently, so you should have those items in front of you.
Ms. Kaplan?
Mr. Smith.
I move that the Board of Education approve the 2025 Walled Lake Head Start budget narrative and be granted permission to pursue the early Head Start continuation application.
Support. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, resolution for MHSAA Cooperative Team Application Gymnastics. Dr. Lons.
Thank you, Madam President. Mrs. Omer? I'm just kidding. I just wanted you to It's been a little bit since we called on you, so.
The gymnast at the table?
I kind of
Mr. Scaling, how about you give this a shot?
I'd be happy to. As long as I don't ever have to talk about the budget, that's fine. Over the past several years, participation in our high school gymnastics programs has steadily declined. The number of gymnasts at Central and Western fall below the minimum needed to support a viable competitive program. To ensure that all interested students in our district have the opportunity to train, compete, and represent Walled Lake schools in gymnastics, we recommend approving cooperative team model that brings together athletes from all three high schools. This model not only maximizes the opportunity for student participation, but also aligns with the structure of other existing Walled Lake co-op teams. Our application for the cooperative gymnastics team has been approved by the MHSAA.
Madam President, if I may add on to
Dr.
that,
Lons.
it's important to note that this is not the first cooperative that we've done. It probably won't be the last, with not only with shrinking enrollment, but we've seen since COVID shrinking participation in athletics in general. So this is a great opportunity for us to continue to serve the needs of our students by still having a gymnastics program. Thank you, Madam President.
Mrs. Kaplan?
Mrs. Crafton.
I move that the Board of Education approve the MHSAA Cooperative Team application to combine Walled Lake Central, Northern, and Western High School girls junior varsity and varsity gymnastics teams, beginning with the 2025-26 athletic season.
Discussion.
As a former gymnast that competed for Walled Lake Western, and so did my sister, she used to be on the wall at Walled Lake Western, I love seeing the opportunity to keep this sport going.
Anybody else? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, next we have board meeting date change. The 2025-26 board meeting dates were publicized following the January 9th, 2025 special organizational board meeting. To better accommodate board member schedules, the board will consider moving the December 4th, 2025 regular meeting to December 18th, 2025.
Make a motion.
Okay, I'll make the motion. I'll continue. I move that the Board of Education move the December 4th, 2025 regular board meeting to December 18th, 2025.
President Kaplan?
Yeah?
I just wanted to mention that that's our backup date. So it still falls within the dates that have been published. We're just using that as our special board meeting date, would now become the regular board meeting date. So this was well publicized in January.
Okay. Did we get a support?
Support.
Yeah,
I did
okay.
interrupt, I apologize. I jumped the gun.
You jumped,
It's the
you
first-
jumped
we're all
in.
It's the same thing, it's the first one. I'll do
Okay,
better.
any discussion?
Madam President, I mean, I'm going to support this regardless, just as an FYI. It is the collage concert for Wall Lake Central, just so you know. Just throwing that out there. So.
Okay. Anybody else?
I think that the Clash concert is for Northern, on the 4th also, so, I mean, either way, it's going to be messing with school events.
We're using appropriate words at the board table.
Northern has
Mr.
2 dates, I
Lippman.
know that for sure.
Okay.
May I ask, is this due to holidays? I'm just curious, or I don't know if.
I think it was lack of attendance.
I think it was being asked by board members that couldn't be there on the 4th if we could move it.
Okay, I just was curious. I was surprised that like that many board members couldn't attend already, come December. So, thank you.
No problem. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries 7-0.
There now.
Board policy regulation update. Dr. Lons.
Thank you very much. As mentioned earlier, we have a number of interims serving with us, and we're very excited to have their experience and their energy in those positions, and it's just an update of those particular ARs.
Thank you. Before we adjourn, I just want to say good luck, Mrs. Crafton, next week.
Thank you.
We're all with you. And hugs to you.
Thank you.
And everyone have a great beginning of the year. And we are adjourned at 9:25.